The next morning, they sat around the kitchen table once more, a sense of nervous anticipation hanging in the air. Father Trevors had already arranged for a social worker to come by to assess their situation and help them get started. California shifted in her chair, trying to calm the flutter of nerves in her stomach. Beside her, Macaulay seemed equally tense, his gaze flicking toward the door every few seconds, as if he were ready to bolt at any moment. The doorbell rang, and Sue gave California an encouraging nod as she went to answer it. California stood as well, following Sue to the entryway. When she opened the door, a woman stood there, her presence both authoritative and calm. She was in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense air about her. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and she wore a neatly pressed blazer and sensible shoes. She looked them over, her gaze assessing, and California felt her heart skip a beat under the woman's scrutiny. "Good morning," she said, her voice crisp but not unkind. "My name is Lisa Ramirez, and I'm with Child Protective Services. Father Trevors informed me of the situation. May I come in?" "Of course," Sue replied warmly, stepping back to let her in. California glanced at Macaulay, who was watching them anxiously from the kitchen, and gave him a small, reassuring nod. Once they were all seated around the table, Lisa looked directly at Macaulay, her gaze softening slightly. "So, Macaulay," she began, her voice gentle but firm, "I understand you've had a tough time lately. I want you to know that I'm here to help you, okay? No one's here to judge you or make things harder. We all want to find the best solution for you." Macaulay nodded, though he didn't quite meet her eyes, and California could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he still seemed ready to flee if things went sideways. Lisa turned to California and Sue, her demeanor shifting back to a more businesslike tone. "Father Trevor spoke very highly of you both and explained your interest in fostering Macaulay. He also shared the unique circumstances of his situation. Now, I'm going to be honest. Cases like this aren't simple. Ordinarily, this would involve a temporary placement with a licensed foster family, and there would be a much longer evaluation period before he could stay here." California's heart sank a little, but she forced herself to stay focused, to take in every word. She'd been ready for the possibility of hurdles, but hearing it laid out made it all feel a bit more real and daunting. But Lisa continued, her gaze softening again as she looked at Macaulay. "I understand that Macaulay has been through more than most kids his age, and he's at high risk of running away if placed in a traditional foster home. For now, given his connection with you two and the support of Father Trevors, I believe we can arrange for him to stay here temporarily while we work through the formal process." Sue let out a breath of relief, and California felt her own shoulders relax slightly, though the tension remained in her chest. "Thank you, Ms. Ramirez," Sue said, gratitude shining in her eyes. We really want to make this work." Lisa nodded, her expression serious. "This arrangement is temporary, but it's a start. However, there's a legal issue we'll need to address. Macaulay mentioned that he has a warrant for his arrest tied to a few minor thefts. Now, this could be a sticking point, but I believe it's manageable. I know a lawyer, Elena Ortega, who does pro bono work for cases like this. She's experienced with at-risk youth, and she's good. I'll contact her, and she should be able to help Macaulay navigate this without any serious repercussions." Macaulay looked up, his face a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. You mean I won't have to go to juvie?" Lisa's gaze softened as she turned to him. "That's what we're going to work toward. But it's important that you stay here, follow the rules, and show that you're serious about this second chance, okay?" Macaulay nodded quickly, his relief evident. I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to go back out there." Lisa's face softened, and she nodded approvingly. "Good. I'll be talking with my boss to finalize this arrangement, but I believe he'll be supportive. We see cases like this far too often, kids who slip through the cracks. But you're lucky, Macaulay. You found two people who care about you deeply, and we want to honor that." She turned back to California and Sue, her expression shifting to something a bit warmer, though still professional. "You two are taking on a big responsibility. Fostering a child, especially one who's been through as much as Macaulay, isn't easy. The system can be frustrating, and there will be red tape. But I'll do everything in my power to make this transition as smooth as possible for all of you. California felt a pang of gratitude, mixed with a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years: hope. She hadn't dared to believe that this could actually work, that someone from the system would look at their unconventional family and see it as something worth fighting for. And now here was this woman, stern but compassionate, willing to bend the rules for a boy who'd lost so much. "Thank you, Ms. Ramirez," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We'll do whatever we need to. Macaulay's been through enough. He deserves a real chance." Lisa nodded, her gaze softening even further. "I believe he does. And I can see that you're both committed to this, which is why I'm willing to help. I'll handle the paperwork on my end, get the temporary arrangement in place, and set up the initial home study as soon as possible. It will involve a few visits, interviews, and background checks, but from what I've seen so far, I think we're on the right path." California glanced over at Macaulay, who was watching Lisa with a mixture of hope and apprehension. She gave him a reassuring smile, her heart swelling with a fierce protectiveness she hadn't known she was capable of. This boy, with his guarded gaze and wounded heart, had somehow slipped into her life and found a place there, and she was determined to give him the home he deserved. "So," Lisa continued, standing up and gathering her papers, "I'll leave you to get settled for now. I'll reach out to the lawyer I mentioned, and she should be able to get in touch with you soon. I'll also be back next week to start the home study process. Just remember, the most important thing is to show that Macaulay is stable, safe, and happy here. If you need anything in the meantime, you can reach out to me directly." Sue stood, extending a hand. "Thank you so much, Ms. Ramirez. Really, we're grateful for everything you're doing." Lisa shook her hand, then turned to California, her gaze steady and kind. "It's clear that you two care deeply about him. I've been in this field long enough to know genuine commitment when I see it. I'll do my best to honor that commitment." With a final nod to Macaulay, she made her way to the door. As she left, California felt a swell of gratitude and relief, tempered by the lingering anxiety that this was only the beginning of a long journey. But she knew, deep down, that they were ready for it. They were ready to fight for Macaulay, to give him the family he deserved, no matter the obstacles. After Lisa left, California and Sue turned to Macaulay, who looked up at them with something like wonder in his eyes. "So, I can stay?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sue nodded, pulling him into a hug. "Yes, sweetheart, you can stay. This is your home now." As California joined the embrace, she felt that hope in her chest solidify, filling her with a fierce determination. They were a family now, and they would face whatever came their way, together.